Please, don't let your picnic table from the last tutorial just sit there. Make that picnic table pop with the animation techniques we're going to learn in this tutorial. Keep watching. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Elliott from Dirk.com, back today with a follow-up tutorial on my picnic table tutorial. That's the one I released last, where we created this picnic table right here. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. Unfortunately, I don't currently have this file available for download, but follow along with that tutorial. It's not too hard. Hopefully in the future I will have a way to host some files for you guys. Let me know in the comments if that's something you would be interested in. But anyways, what we're going to be doing is creating the little kind of pop-up intro animation that you saw on that tutorial. I'll throw it up on the screen here for you to take a look at. And yeah, it's just kind of a cool way to show a model, or I mean, you could do this with text, you could do it with all sorts of things. Just a cool way to add a little bit of animation to an otherwise static piece. So yeah, we're going to be going over how to create that animation today. A couple of the parts are a little repetitive, but I'm going to try to hit all the main points. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So with our picnic table selected here, we're basically going to want to we're going to set up kind of a basic animation that we want to happen with each of the pieces here while the object is still all together. And then we'll split it up and kind of, move the keyframes around so that they happen at different times. And we'll move the origins around so that they kind of spawn from different points, basically. So yeah, what I have here, and you might have noticed if I go into edit mode, I've got the same file I ended with before. So this is just a bunch of planes here, and all the magic is really happening with modifiers. My bad for saying magic, by the way. There was one dude in the last tutorial who didn't like how many times I said magic, but we don't like him coming to our tutorials because we're all about magic here. Magic, 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 magic. Okay, I won't say anymore. So anyways, we got all the modifier magic happening, and I'm just going to, I don't want, some of these are kind of like dependent on some things and stuff. I don't know what I just did. Something bad. I'm going to undo that. So yeah, I don't want the modifiers just like that. I just want these all to be, I just want those all to be applied. I want the object to have all the real geometry. So yeah, I'm going to apply the modifiers. So if you apply them in order, you should not run into any issues. You would not want to apply them out of order. So I'm going to apply the first modifier first, apply, bevel, apply, solidify, apply, which by the way, I get it guys, in the last tutorial, the thickness is 2 meters. I don't care. Okay. That's not what we're talking about today. We're just doing, these are just numbers. It looks like a picnic table, okay? If anyone doesn't think it looks like a picnic table, then argue in the comments. I'm going to apply it at 0.2 meters thick. So sorry. And then I'm going to apply the bevel modifier as well. So what I have now, if I tab into edit mode, is a little bit of a sloppy mesh, but we're not going to be editing this geometry really anymore. So it's fine. So I'm just going to tab out of edit mode and not think about it again. So yeah, that's good. Now what I want to do is, like I said, since many of these objects are going to have essentially the same animation, I just want to do that once. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the animation kind of that I'm going for on just this one object while it's all together here. So what we're going to be doing is playing with the scale value. And of course we want it to end at this scale of 1. So let's just figure out kind of how long we want this animation to be. I think something like 3 seconds is going to be pretty good. So if this is 24 frames per second, then it would be 72 frames. So that sounds good to me. I'm going to go ahead and set that end to 72. And I'm going to right click on the scale here and insert keyframes. And that'll insert keyframes for all those scale values. But of course, with only one keyframe, nothing is going to be happening. So I'm going to go back to frame 1 here at the start of our animation, and then select those and type in 0 and make the scale 0. So now we have the object starting at scale 0, which is basically invisible, and moving all the way up to a scale of 1. So cool. That looks good. Now one thing you'll notice is the way it doesn't really have a lot of doesn't have a lot of good pop to it. For one, I don't want it to be quite so slow. So, maybe I want this whole animation to take place over the course of 3 seconds, but maybe each individual element only takes like 1 second to pop up. So I'm going to actually, you can actually do this while it's playing, but I'm going to move this to, frame like 24 or something. Don't be a perfectionist, but I'm a perfectionist, so it's at 24, exactly 1 second. So cool, that's about what I want. I want each piece to pop up like that. But even though I've made it pretty quick, it still starts off kind of slow, and then it's fastest at the middle, and then it kind of eases out. So that's something that's normally pretty good. It's a little bit more of an organic look, but I want this to have a really good kind of pop to it. I want it to start out fast and then slow down. I don't want it to start out slow at all. So what I'm going to do is up here in the right hand corner, I'm just going to drag out a new window, and I'm going to make that a graph editor, and you can just press G or click right there. So now I'm going to press A to select everything, and then period on my number pad to zoom everything I have selected. If you don't have a number pad, by the way, you could also just go into view and view selected, and that's the hotkey right there, which we just pressed because we have a number pad. Number pad crew, leave a comment. Just kidding, that's kind of pointless. But if you have a number pad, you should use it. It's good. And if you don't have a number pad, you should get one. It's good. So now we have the animation happening here. But like I said, I want this to have a little bit of pop. And looking at this graph, we're not going to do any deep dives on what the graph editor does here. But basically, this is the easing. We're looking at it here. So it's kind of slow. And then the steeper this line is, the faster things are happening, because this is time on the bottom and the value along the left side. So you can see it goes from 0 to 1. So yeah, you could play with these handles individually, but there's actually some presets in Blender. With all that selected, again, if you've deselected it for some reason, you can press A to select it all and then press T. And then we can adjust the keyframe interpolation, which is basically what Blender does between the keyframes you set. So we set 2 keyframes. What happens in between is all up to Blender and this keyframe interpolation. So if we set that to linear, for example, it's just a steady movement. But when it's on Bezier, it's got a little bit more easing to it. I'm going to try to do a tutorial on this graph stuff, but for now, just go with the flow here. And then there's a couple more settings over here. So I do want it to be eased, but I want it to have kind of like a faster easing. So it's got those curve settings. You can play, these are all honestly pretty similar, but play with those if you'd like to. You use one of them and you can do whatever you want, but I'm just going to use whichever one I clicked on there, cubic. That looks pretty good. So now the problem is I said I wanted this to ease out and start fast, not end fast. So I need to kind of flip this around. So I'm going to press Shift S, I think. No, Control E. There it is. Control E and ease out. And what that will do is make it ease out. So now it starts fast and it's kind of got a nice pop to it. Again, this is definitely a style choice, but I think that looks pretty good. So now that I have I want that animation basically on every piece. And the reason that I set that up ahead of time is that now when I split this object up, every object is going to have, every piece that gets split off of this is going to have that animation come with it. So now we are ready to split this up a little bit. What I'm going to do is just kind of drag that window out of the way. And yeah, I'm going to go into edit mode here by pressing tab. And then if I press A, I can select everything. And then what I'm going to do is press P on my number pad. Or sorry, there's no P on the number pad. P on my regular keyboard. And separate by loose parts. And that's going to do pretty much what it sounds like. It's going to make loose parts. So everything that wasn't connected is going to be a loose part. And in this case, nothing should have been connected. So these all come as individual objects. Pretty cool, right? Now, for the purposes of this tutorial and not making it too long, I'm going to actually kind of rejoin a few of these parts so they happen together. You can do them individually. Like, for example, I'll pull the video up here again. You can see that the top is actually, it's multiple. Each slat has its own animation, so the kind of middle one starts, and then the other ones come, slightly offset. You can do that if you'd like. It's just kind of it's more of the same work. It does, in my opinion, look a little bit better. But for this, I'm going to actually just shift select all these and press Control J and join them together. Likewise with the seats, I'm going to press Control J, join those all together, and I'll do the other pieces. Well, maybe let's join like these ones, for example. Let's join those together, and maybe these can get joined together. Again, the more you split this up, the more kind of dynamic it might look, but it can get a little confusing when you've got a ton of different pieces. So I think I like the way this is split up. Maybe let's join those together. And basically any pieces that I'm joining are going to have the same effect. So Control J, join those together. And so now those will kind of link to each other. So now instead of having so many different pieces, I just have a few. You could go in here and name them if you'd like to, but I'm not going to, because we're really going to do this pretty much visually, and we won't need to look over here too much. So yeah, so we've got the separate objects there. They've all still got that animation that we had set up prior. And now we just basically need to kind of offset the animation of these pieces. So I want it to stop kind of similar to the animation I did. I want it to start with the top. So let's have the top come out first, and then maybe everything else happens after. So I'm going to shift click that top to deselect it, and then just select one of these as an active object. And now with all those selected, I can press G and X and slide them over. And even though the top isn't selected, it does appear to still be taking that value. And I think that's because when we duplicated those objects, it actually came with the animation linked. So I don't want that. I want them all to have their own individual data. So if we move one, it won't also move the others, so, unless I have them all selected, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these objects, and then I think what I'm going to do, there used to be a hotkey for this, I knew. I'm just going to search, and I think it's like unlink data. Yeah, so link data, I don't want that. I want to unlink. Yeah, there we go. So nope. No, wait, no, what it is. Here it is. It's user. Make single user. Okay. So those objects were all using that data, that animation data. So I want to make them all single user. So click that. And then for selected objects. And then down here, I can select just object animation. And what that'll do is now make it so that if I adjust the animation handles on one of these, it's not going to do it on all the same, because now they have their own animation data. So with that done now, I should be able to, let's select everything again, and then I'm going to deselect the top. And so now I can move this all over, and yes, so now all the ones I have selected are moving over. So let's maybe just move it all the way to the end, so that, so basically that happens at the last part. So we can actually move maybe our window over here so we can see a little bit better. So now the top happens, and then everything else happens. But of course, we're going to want to kind of space that out a little bit. And another thing I'm noticing here that I don't really like is that everything is spawning from this origin point. So similarly, how it got the same animation data, it also took the same origin. So these objects all have the same origin right there at the center. And I don't really want them to stretch out from the bottom like that. I want them to kind of stretch out from their final place. And that has something to do, again, with the origin. So all these objects have the same origin right here. And that's not what I want. So I want them to, a quick way to just go ahead and snap things to kind of sort of where they are is just select all those and then right click and set origin to geometry. And that will select, basically if you were to go into edit mode, press A to select everything, the center of all that geometry, is going to be where that origin appears. So now if we look at this, the top is starting kind of right where it is and scaling outwards, and similar with all these. And there you can see we're already getting kind of a pretty cool effect. So that's nice. Now let's just start to space these things out a little bit more. So again, we'll have the top start first, and then maybe from the top, maybe we'll sprout these legs. So let's select those legs, and then let's just move them. So once the top is finished at 24 frames, or maybe just a little bit before it, let's move these keyframes over for that piece that's selected. Something like, so maybe they start popping out right there. And similarly, even though this is the center of the geometry, I actually want them to kind of start up here. So I'm just going to move the origin. So I'm just going to circle select and select some of those. And even though I don't have them all selected, that's pretty good. So now what I can do is Shift S, snap cursor to selected, and then out of edit mode by pressing tab, I can right click and set origin to the 3D cursor. And now they'll scale from that point. So that's pretty good. That's about what I want. Now I'm noticing though that these are kind of floating in midair. So maybe right before that happens, we'll have these pieces go. So yeah, let's do that. And maybe I'll let those scale. I think maybe those pieces will have a scale. I'm pressing Alt Z to go into my X-ray mode. Snap cursor to selected. I'll have them scale from there. So I'm going to set the origin there to 3D cursor. And then again, I was going to move these over. So let's just move that. So maybe this pops out, and then that pops out right kind of after. And depending on how you have your camera set up, you might want to adjust these so that you don't get any kind of weird view. But I think that's pretty good. Although, just for a little more interest, maybe let's offset things a little bit. Let's move this over a little bit. So the top starts right away, then that pops, then that pops. That's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. And if I was smart, maybe I could have done this a different way. Maybe like before I split them. But I'm just going to go here and move some origins around, origin to 3D cursor. And then with these, I'm going to do the same thing. Cursor to selected, origin to 3D cursor. And then, maybe, so those pop. So maybe where this one, that one starts right about frame 13. Let's move this one. Let's actually just select both these and then move them over. So now they're, since I moved them together, they're both happening at the same time. So to offset the legs, let's just select those, move them over a little bit. So now things happen kind of a little more sporadically. That's looking pretty good. And then similarly, I want to have this start maybe right after the top is honestly like kind of right there. So let's select that, move it over, GX. And then similarly, I want this to happen from that point. So I'm going to snap my cursor to selected, set the origin to the 3D cursor, and then, so it's scaling from there. Now we've got a little bit of an issue. Something happened. I think I might have moved something. So cursor to selected, origin to 3D cursor. Yeah, so somewhere along the lines, I think I hit the wrong snap button. But okay, so the top, as soon as the top's basically big enough to cover that, I think I want to go ahead and move this over. So GX. And then, yeah, we'll have it start pretty much right there. I think that's pretty cool. And now what about those legs? So now I'm going to show you just one other thing here. And this is, again, kind of a style preference. But I like that these, I'm fine. I want these to kind of start from the middle here, but I don't want them to start from the middle, like left to right, because I want them to just be kind of where they are. What I can do, I can play with this value here to see what's making that happen. And it's this Y scale. So I'm just going to go to the end here where that's 1. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to clear single keyframes, and that'll delete the Y scale. So now they only scale that way. And that's pretty cool. I think I like that. Now, I think depending on kind of how your materials are set up and stuff, sometimes if it's not all 0, you might see it. But I think, like let's just preview it real quick here in rendered view. Yeah, so that's not showing up, which is good. Sometimes you have to be careful. If everything's not 0, it might show up. But looks like we're in pretty good shape. So yeah, we've got basically kind of what we want here. So now what you could do, if you did want to go in, you could, for example, I'm going to press L to select just a couple objects, like maybe those ones I want to happen separately. Separate by selection. And now I think this would probably get the animation data duplicated. Yeah, same reason as before. So I'm going to F3, make single user, selected objects, object animation. Okay. Now I can, let's just move. So there's where it starts. Let's just move this one over a little bit. Something like that. Bam. Yeah, so now it's a little offset. And in my animation, you'll see that I did the same thing where I removed the Y keyframes. So maybe we select those, clear single keyframes. Nice. Looking pretty good. Okay, looks like those ones didn't get it. Let's clear single keyframes. So yeah, now it starts kind of from the middle. But anyways, that's basically it, guys. You got the basic principles there. Now it's just a matter of kind of going in and adjusting these things, getting the timing looking right. But that's essentially how you create an animation like that. Again, it's just a matter of playing with everything individually. Maybe we can select all our objects here. I can see that the seats are happening a little too late. You can kind of move those over. Yeah, it's just a matter of playing with these. You can have different curves for each one of them. Split it into as many objects as you want. Maybe you want the seats to happen separately. Yeah, just have fun with it. It's a cool way. You can do this with any model. It doesn't have to be this picnic table model. Do whatever you want. And yeah, have fun. Hope you guys learned something. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and feel free to leave me a comment if you have any suggestions for ways you would have done this, or maybe other ideas you have for future tutorials. I'd love to hear them. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Animate some picnic tables. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Oh yeah, check that out. Have fun. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.